And welcome everybody to the GSMC Sports Podcast. I am your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Tuesday, February 18th. We have a lot to cover on the show today. Before I get into all that, just want to remind you guys to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat if you want to see me acknowledge any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. Makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate you guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCPodcast.net. That is GSMCPodcast.net. So let's get into what we are going to discuss today. So we are going to start off the show. We are going to talk about the Bengals' plans to franchise tag T. Higgins once again, as they are looking to negotiate a long-term deal with him. We'll also talk about Draymond Green. I know we talked about him yesterday in his comments on the NBA All-Star Game, but we're going to talk about what he said regarding the Warriors and how, with the acquisition of Jimmy Butler, he feels like they can win the championship. So we'll get into that. We'll talk about Aaron Judge. He met with the media yesterday for the first time, and he was asked about Juan Soto, and we'll talk about what Judge had to say, because now this is, like I said, this is the first time Judge is speaking publicly since Soto left to join the Mets. So I wanted to get into that. We will also talk about Aaron Rodgers once again. He supposedly was pleading with the Jets to keep him and give him a year or two, but another year or two, but that ended up not happening. So we'll get into that, and also just talk about how, with the Matthew Stafford trade rumors up in the air, and Russell Wilson's a free agent, Aaron Rodgers is now a free agent, which quarterback should a team want the most? So we'll get into that as well. And then in the final part of the show, we'll talk about Mike Trout and how he is changing positions this upcoming season to try to preserve him. He's a guy that's dealt with a lot of injuries over the last several years, so we'll get into that as well. So let's get into the first topic, which is talking about T. Higgins. So it looks like the Bengals are going to franchise tag T. Higgins once again. This happened last season, and he played under the tag. Missed some time due to injury, but, that's kind of happened. He's a guy that has dealt with injuries over the course of his career. But when he plays, he's very productive. And he put together another solid season, even though he missed some time. But the Bengals are looking to keep this group together. And Joe Burrow has emphasized that when he's met with the media. I know when he was on First Take, they talked about it with him. But he wants to keep this team together. And, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, they all want to stay together and try to win a championship together. And it's going to be tough because these players deserve big contracts. Jamar Chase is coming off of a season where he won the Triple Crown. T. Higgins, had a productive season. On the year, he had 73 receptions for 911 receiving yards and 10 touchdowns. And he played in 12 games. So imagine if he played the whole season, what kind of year he could have had. And yeah, so you're going to have to figure out a way to keep him, Jamar Chase, and Trey Hendrickson also happy. Now, I think Joe Burrow is willing to, restructure his deal to try to, keep the band together. I don't know if it's going to happen, if I'm going to be honest. I definitely think they need to prioritize keeping Jamar Chase. I've said that all along. I think if you had to choose between Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, I'm choosing Jamar Chase. And the other thing, too, is the Bengals just had a year where their defense was bad. It was not good, and it was kind of the main reason they didn't make the playoffs. Because look at all the shootouts that the Bengals got into. And some blame fell on Joe Burrow because he would turn the ball over in a crucial moment, and that would lead to points. Now, the second Ravens game, they were up by a couple of scores, and their offense stalled, and that allowed the Ravens to get back in the game. But for the most part, their defense let them down this year. And that is an area that needs to improve. And if you're paying 2 wide receivers a ton of money, and on top of that, you got to figure out how to, negotiate a contract with Trey Hendrickson as well. How are you going to be able to fix this defense? You're really going to have to nail your picks in the draft because you're not going to be able to go out and, sign a bunch of free agents. Not saying, that's you want to spend like a drunken sailor, which many people have used that term over the last. I feel like I've heard that term more recently than before, but yeah, people have been using that term. But you want to maybe at least get an impactful player on the defensive side of the ball by dipping your toes in free agency. They're not going to be able to do that. It's kind of going to be like the Cowboys offseason last year, where you signed Dak, you signed CD to these long-term deals, and then that's it. Then you just rely on your draft class. I mean, the Cowboys did also sign some other free agents, but they weren't really that impactful. One of them was bringing back one of their own. Really, was bringing back Ezekiel Elliott. But yeah, that's the one problem I have. Is your cap, majority of it is going to be going to 3 or 4 players. That's not good. Now, I guess, with the Bengals, if they franchise tag him, he doesn't hit the open market, and if they're not able to work out a long-term deal, they could trade him, and you get assets back for him. So that's beneficial. But ideally, they want to keep T. Higgins around. But the other thing, too, is, if you get a long-term deal with T. Higgins done before Jamar Chase, is that going to rub Jamar Chase the wrong way? Jamar Chase just had an incredible year. He should be the number one priority. But they don't want T. Higgins to hit the open market. They're going to have to multitask. They're going to have to try to figure out long-term deals with both players. And you could throw Trey Hendrickson in there, because we've been talking about him. And try to get it all done relatively quick. And if not, then, you try to get long-term deals done with Jamar Chase and Trey Hendrickson. And then I guess you're looking for a trade partner for T. Higgins. And T. Higgins, it's going to be a bidding war for him if the Bengals aren't able to come to a agreement with him on a long-term contract. There are plenty of teams out there that need wide receiver help. Plenty. So they're going to have no problem finding a trade partner, which I think that is the likely scenario, in my opinion. I've said that all along. I would be shocked if it went the other way around and they kept T. Higgins and they traded Jamar Chase. That it's not going to happen. And you would really tick off Joe Burrow if that happened. You want to make sure your quarterback is happy. I don't think that's happening. I think, and I've said it all along, the more likely scenario is T. Higgins will not be a Bengal next year. I'll believe it when I see it. Yes, it seems like they're going to franchise tag him, but ultimately, I think what's going to happen is they're not going to be able to get the numbers to match, and he's going to be playing elsewhere in 2025. And honestly, like I've been saying, I think it might be for the better, because you need to fix this defense. Now, I would love to see them all stay together, because the Bengals offense is really fun to watch when it's clicking. And T. Higgins really does help Jamar Chase. Joe Burrow even said it. Yeah, okay. Opposing defenses, focus all your attention on Jamar Chase. Then you leave T. Higgins one-on-one. And T. Higgins had some monster games. That game against the Broncos, yes, the Bengals ultimately didn't make the playoffs, but T. Higgins came up big in that game. Had a couple of touchdowns. He had the big catch down the sideline that set up the game-winning touchdown, because they were not letting Cade York kick that football again, because they didn't trust him. But they trusted Joe Burrow, and they trusted T. Higgins to get it done, and that's what happened. Well, really, that whole offense. I mean, we didn't know where that pass was going to go until, the play developed. It happened. T. Higgins caught the game-winning touchdown, and the Bengals were still alive at that point. But like I said, I would love for them to stay together. I just don't know if it's going to happen. If Joe Burrow wants to, like I said, if he wants to restructure his contract, so be it. But then it's like, all right, you got everybody back, but where does that leave the defense? They changed coordinators, so we'll see if that helps. But it's also getting the right personnel in there that takes the field and executes. And they lost a lot of guys over the years. Guys in the secondary they lost to free agency. Guys just left in general. They need to fix this defense. It's not the defense that it was when they went on that miracle run to the Super Bowl to face the Rams. They gotta fix it. So we'll see how this all develops. But it does look like, once again, T. Higgins is going to get the franchise tag. Let me know what you guys think about that. What are your thoughts on that? Let me know in the comments. We'll see if they're able to pull it off and keep everybody together. But it's going to be very tough. So we are going to take our first break of the show. And then when we come back, we're going to talk about basketball. We'll talk about Draymond Green. We touched upon some of his comments on the All-Star game a little bit yesterday. But now we're actually going to talk about something else he said, and that is him declaring that the Warriors will win the championship this year with the acquisition of Jimmy Butler. So we're going to talk about that when we come back from our first break. I'll give you my thoughts on that and how realistic that is. So make sure to stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC football. Nope, I did it again. We'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh,
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we're going to talk about what Draymond Green had to say regarding the Warriors and them winning the championship this year. And he feels really confident about it. I give him props for that. But let's get into what he had to say. So this is what he said. And this was, during All-Star Weekend. So, Draymond said, since Jimmy Butler's been here, we've walked into every game thinking and believing that we're going to win that game. And that goes a long way in this league. When you walk in the game like, oh man, we're probably going to lose this game, it's not good. He's brought back that belief, and I think we're going to win the championship. And I thought it extended after that. But yeah, that's the quote here in this Yahoo Sports article that I have. But he is very confident that the Warriors can do this. And in the 4 games that Jimmy Butler has been with the Warriors, they are 3-1. Their defense has improved over that stretch. However, it's a small sample size. And A couple of other things. So the teams that they went up against the Bucks in that stretch. Some of the teams they were facing though were missing key players. So they played the Bulls. They won 132 to 111. And I want to see if Jimmy Butler's stats with the Warriors are here. So it includes the Warriors and the Heat. So they didn't separate them yet. But Jimmy Butler, over these 4 games that he's been with the Warriors, 25 points against the Bulls, 20 against the Bucks, 21 against Dallas, and then 19 against Houston. He had only 2 rebounds in the first game. He had 9 against the Bucks and the Mavericks, and then he had 8 against the Rockets. 6 assists against the Bucks and 7 against Dallas. Played 29 minutes the first game, 31 minutes the second game, and 35 the following 2 games. But again, small sample size, and I believe when they faced the Bucks, there was no Giannis. Dallas, there was no Anthony Davis, of course, because he's hurt. But Dallas actually still won. They faced off against an old buddy in Klay Thompson. Kyrie Irving actually had 42 points in that game. So that was kind of the difference for Dallas in the game. And then they beat the Rockets. So yeah, small sample size. But are we going to call Draymond crazy? Not necessarily. Because the Warriors, just on the simple fact that the Warriors have that proven track record of winning championships with this group. Now, it's a very different group than in the years past. There's no more Klay Thompson. Obviously, Kevin Durant's not there. No Andre Iguodala. Remember Max Kellerman saying, if with everybody's lives on the line, he would choose Iguodala to hit the shot to win the game. Yeah, never thought I'd be talking about that. But I don't think Draymond is that crazy just because of that. But it's different. It's him and Steph Curry. That's really it. Since the very first championship that they won. Now, you got Steve Kerr there, who's been the head coach through this entire run. But the Warriors got a lot of work to do, though. Because right now, they're 10th in the Western Conference. They're tied with the Kings. Then you got Dallas is a game and a half ahead of them. Then you got the Timberwolves, who are 2.5 games ahead of them. And then you got the top 6. Oklahoma City's in first in the Western Conference. Then you got the Grizzlies, who have had a bounce-back year with the healthy John Moran. The Nuggets, the Rockets have kind of been a surprise team, I guess, in my opinion. I'm pretty sure people thought they were going to be good. And you got the Lakers at 5, Clippers at 6. I mean, look, people have their questions with OKC just because, it's still a relatively young team. Last year they, were an early playoff exit. Could the Warriors beat them in a 7-game series? Maybe. I don't know if I would say the Warriors are going to win the championship because then on the other side, like if they face the Celtics in a 7-game series, I think the Celtics are going to win. The Cavs have gotten off to such a great start. They're 44-10 right now. But do people think that they're going to win the championship? Cavs fans probably do. But I'm not willing to say that the Cavs are going to win the championship. If the Cavs matched up against the Warriors in the finals, if the Warriors got there, I'd probably take the Warriors. But again, they have a long way to go. Right now, they'd be playing in the play-in tournament. So they really got to, win some games. And I was looking at their schedule, their remaining games. It's not really that brutal of a schedule. You look at the March schedule. They play the 76ers, who have been a disappointment. The Hornets. The Knicks will be tough. The Nets, the Pistons actually are, they've turned it around finally. I feel like they've been bad for so long, but they've turned it around. But then they play the Trailblazers. Then, towards the end of the month, you got the Raptors, the Hawks, the Heat, the Pelicans, the Spurs, which could be tough. I feel like the Warriors could definitely, stack up some wins with this remaining schedule here. But yeah, they're only a game over 500. And the other thing too is, can Jimmy Butler stay healthy? I mean, that's always the key with you could say that for every sport is health. And so far so good. My concern was, how is it going to go? How is the relationship, the chemistry going to be with Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green? Because and Draymond was asked about this. You got two alphas there, and Draymond said it's not really going to be a problem. Everything's going to fall in line. It's basically what he said. So, I mean, if that's the case, and they all have the same objective. They're trying to win a championship. And if you can get a playoff Jimmy performance through these playoffs with Steph Curry, look, Steph Curry's getting older, but Steph Curry can still play at a high level, at a very high level. Yeah, they could shock some people and make a run. And the other thing that people were pointing to is Draymond said this back in 2022. Basically said, yeah, we're going to win the championship. And what happened? They won the championship. Now, different team, but, you still got Steph Curry there. You still got Steve Kerr. You still got Draymond. They know what to do. And now you got Jimmy Butler. And if Jimmy Butler could stay healthy, yeah, no, they're gonna be a tough out. They're gonna be a tough out. But I would like to see them get out of the play-in tournament. And how about the Phoenix Suns? They're on the outside looking in. What a disappointment that team has been. Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, and this team is on the outside looking in with the playoffs. Durant's probably going to end up going elsewhere at some point. I kind of understand, and I brought this up yesterday, why he wouldn't want to go back to Golden State. But, I don't know. I mean, don't you want to win? You worked so well with Steph Curry. It's one of the best players you've played with in your career. But it's more to that. It's more to that. And they went with one of the next best things, I guess, and that's getting Jimmy Butler, and they extended him. So, yeah, if the Warriors don't get it done this year, you come back and reload for next year, and you got Butler. Unless something happens, and he complains and, ends up holding out, basically. But we'll see what happens. The second half of the season is upon us. We kind of started this up, during All-Star Weekend. So, but once games come back, we'll keep our eyes on it. We'll see, how it all plays out. But look, I mean, the Warriors, they got that championship pedigree. That's really what it comes down to. But they got to improve in the standings here. And I definitely think they will, especially getting Jimmy Butler in there. Because now you got another scorer on that team. And Steph Curry's at the point in his career where he can't do it all by himself. You need somebody else there that could take, that could take the edge off. And Jimmy Butler can do that. They're going to go hand in hand. So, curious to see how it plays out, but yeah, I'm not going to sit here and say, yeah, the Warriors are going to go on this run here. We got to see more out of them, in the second half here, improve themselves in the standings, and then we go from there. So, but let me know what you guys think about Draymond's comments. You think the Warriors have a chance now with Jimmy Butler in the fold? I'm not necessarily going to say that, but I wouldn't count them out. Just because they've been there and done that before. So, before we go to break, I do want to remind you guys, once again, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized, make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat. if you want to see me acknowledge any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. Makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate you guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCPodcast.net. That is GSMCPodcast.net. So, when we come back from our next break, we will talk about Aaron Judge and the Yankees. We'll talk about what Judge had to say on Juan Soto's departure from the team to join the Mets. It's been a while since, I know I talked a little bit about the Yankees yesterday with the Alex Bregman signing, but we're going to talk about the Yankees, though. We're talking about things from Aaron Judge's perspective. We talked about Juan Soto and the kind of season that, he's in store for this year, which I think he will have a very good year. I didn't say that he was going to have as good of a year as he did last year, but I do think he's going to have a very good year. I would think he's going to be an all-star. So we will get into all of that when we come back from our next break, what Aaron Judge had to say on Soto leaving. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we're going to talk about Aaron Judge, talking about Juan Soto for the first time when he met with the media, since Soto left for the Mets. So, interesting comments from Judge. But, the media did ask him about what Soto said, because Soto talked about how, New York is a Mets town and they have a great chance to win, all that, or the best chance to win, along the lines of that. And Judge said, well, that's his opinion. He could say what he wants. I definitely disagree with him. Of course, Judge is going to say that, playing for the Yankees. But, he also said it's going to be great having him in the town. We're going to be battling back and forth for quite a few years. He also said that he wasn't too surprised by it, by Soto leaving. He said that I think the Mets are where he wanted to be. I think that was what was best for him and his family. He got a pretty nice deal over there. You can't say no to that, but I'm happy for him. And, I didn't expect Judge to, say anything negative about Soto. And he also did talk about, what the Yankees did this offseason, bringing in Cody Bellinger, bringing in Paul Goldschmidt, and he said they're going to add such a different dynamic to this team. It really lengthens out our whole lineup. When you have those guys batting in the middle of the order, a lot of good things are going to happen. You can't replace a guy like Juan Soto, but you bring in guys like that are all-stars, MVP caliber players. We did a pretty good job. And I do agree. However, as a Yankee fan, they are already dealing with the injury bug. Giancarlo Stanton is dealing with elbow soreness in both of his elbows, and he might not be ready for opening day, and who knows when he's going to come back. So it's starting already. But that's a separate topic. I want to talk about, Judge and Soto. And, Aaron Judge is all class. And I don't think there's anything that he said that you could take and say, nah, he doesn't really mean that. I think he does genuinely mean what he is saying. You know, I'm not going to try to spin it and say, he's ticked off with Soto for leaving. Now, I know a lot of people were upset with Judge because supposedly he didn't talk to Soto at all in the offseason. Well, on one hand, Judge wanted to give him space, which I have no problem with. But Judge did say that, you know, he did try to reach out to him, and there was that whole thing with Juan Soto, you know, getting a new cell phone and changing his, you know, his phone number. And nobody was able to reach him. None of his former teammates were able to reach him because initially we heard, none of his teammates talked to him in the offseason. And then we heard, oh, well, he actually got a new cell phone. And then people started reaching out to him. So that whole thing was very odd. But it does make you wonder, had Judge reached out to Soto sooner, could that have changed the tides, and could he have been back with the Yankees? I'm going to be honest, I don't think so. Even as a Yankee fan, you know, I always felt like, he's probably going to leave. I would lean more towards saying he's leaving than staying. I wasn't like a lot of these Yankee fans that were blindsided by it, because I feel like there were a lot of Yankee fans that truly just did not expect him to leave. But I learned my lesson after Robinson Cano when he left back in the day. I was more to be honest, I was more heartbroken over that than Juan Soto leaving. I mean, that doesn't mean I'm not upset. I definitely am upset. I wanted him to stay. I loved watching him and Aaron Judge bat back to back for one season. It was unbelievable, but it wasn't going to. It just wasn't meant to be over the long term. And you know, are the Yankees better off without Soto? It's a tough question. It's a tough question because I like the moves that they made, but at the same time, losing that bat in the order is, like Judge said, it's going to be very hard to replace him. And you're replacing him with guys like Paul Goldschmidt and Cody Bellinger. Cody Bellinger is far removed from MVP Cody Bellinger. You know, Paul Goldschmidt is 37 years old. And he was very disappointing to start off the year, but had a better second half. So hopefully the Yankees are getting that version of Paul Goldschmidt and not the first half Paul Goldschmidt. And these guys are going to have to take it up a notch because, you know, Giancarlo Stanton probably not going to be playing to start the year. And who knows when he's coming back. Like I said. And I think the key for the Yankees this year is the young guys. Jason Dominguez, Austin Wells, Anthony Volpe. Those guys really have to step up this year. I think the Yankees pitching is really good. I think this is the best pitching depth that they've had in a while. The bullpen is going to be lights out this year. The rotation is going to be strong. My concern is the lineup. Because they don't have a lot of depth. And when Giancarlo Stanton got hurt last year, the Yankees really struggled. It was really just Judge and Soto. Anthony Manzano in the chat has a couple of things to say. I wouldn't say the Yankees are better off without Juan Soto, but I think the financials would be better off without him. See, that I would agree with. Now, that doesn't mean I didn't want to keep him. I wanted the Yankees to keep him, and if they were able to keep him and they got him to that, you know, that 760 for 16 years, right? I would have loved that. But at the same time, they didn't get him, and they were able to go out and address other needs. Because had they signed Juan Soto, they wouldn't have been able to get Max Fried. They wouldn't have been able to get Devin Williams. And Devin Williams is a legit closer. Max Fried is a great starting pitcher. Pair him up with Garrett Cole. And now you got this 1-2 combo that's, you know, if they stay healthy, it's going to be one of the best in the league. And then you went out and you got Cody Bellinger. You got Paul Goldschmidt for 1 year. So I like what they did. I really do. The plan B was good. But now, I still think they need another bat. They might need two bats because if Stanton's out, he's a very important player. And, you miss him, it's like how are they going to replace that? I mean, I heard Aaron Boone talking about Dominic Smith, who they signed. I would not want that. I would not want Dom Smith being my DH because now this is like last year when J.D. Davis was the DH or Jahmai Jones was the DH. Don't want that. Now, he is a lefty, and for those that don't know, one of my favorite words is balance. And the Yankees in past years did not have balance in their lineup. Now, last year it was great because you had Soto and, Verdugo kind of fell off. Rizzo kind of fell off. But still, they got Jazz Chisholm, Austin Wells. There was good balance in the lineup. But Dom Smith, that doesn't do it for me. If he's the Yankees' everyday DH, that's a problem for me. And then Anthony also said, and I think also the Yankees want to build through their farm system and do what they did in the 90s, where they won multiple World Series with the core of players that they develop on their own. I agree with that 100%. The problem is how the Yankees handle these prospects, and a lot of these prospects really don't turn into anything. Now, that doesn't mean that some of these prospects do turn into something. They do. Aaron Judge, for example, is a Yankee prospect. Austin Wells, Clark Schmidt, Luis Gil. It's a little bit of both. A lot of these prospects don't work, and that's what a majority of the fan base focuses on because, they've had it with the front office, which, listen, I've had my differences with the front office as well, but, they got to a World Series. Now it's all about getting back and winning it this time around, which is going to be tough. Also, Anthony says, I've noticed that with the Yankees and Red Sox recently that their lineup is not really that balanced. It's either dominated by left-handed hitters or right-handed hitters. And to be honest, I'd rather the Yankees have a ton of left-handed hitters because of that short porch in right field. Everybody talks about it. Everybody complains about it. Well, you have that advantage. Every team that comes in the Yankee Stadium has the same advantage with that short porch. But the Yankees, you go back to 2021. There was maybe one or two left-handed hitters in the lineup. One of them was Brett Gardner, and then, to be honest, then they went out and got Rizzo and Gallo to try to, balance the lineup even more. But, obviously with Joey Gallo, we know how that panned out. But, you had all these right-handed hitters for a stadium that is built for left-handed bats. Now, this year, yes, they lost Soto. Now Goldschmidt is taking over for Rizzo, but now Goldschmidt is a right-handed hitter, but it's fine. You got Cody Bellinger. So they have Cody Bellinger, Austin Wells, Jazz Chisholm, and Jason Dominguez. Jason Dominguez is a switch hitter. So you got 4 lefty bats, 1 switch hitter. And then, you got Volpe, you got Judge, Goldschmidt, like I said. I guess Oswaldo Cabrera is going to be the third baseman. Well, we'll see. It's going to be between him and, DJ LeMahieu and maybe Oswald Peraza. So we'll see how it goes. But the injuries already are concerning me. There's some injuries with the pitching, but I'm not really worried about that. The lineup is what I worry about because if they can't score this year, are you really going to expect the pitchers to go out there and, give up 1 or 2 runs a game every single time? It's not going to happen. There's going to be some off days for them. That is where my concerns are. Anthony also said, well, Aaron Judge is an exception to the rule. I think he benefits. Yeah, no, Judge is Judge. There's no issues there. There's no issues there. He also said they have a left-handed hitter in there. Yep, Spencer Jones. But there's some concerns there with him because he's a guy that strikes out a lot. So hopefully, he has a bounce-back year here, and then maybe he's impactful for the big league ball club at some point down the line. So, but yeah, kind of got off topic, but this is an Aaron Judge, Juan Soto topic. But Anthony, I appreciate the the comments in the chat as always. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about what Judge had to say. What are your expectations for the Yankees this upcoming season? I think they're going to be good. I do. I think the offense is going to take a little bit of a step back without Soto, but maybe it surprises people. If the young guys step up, maybe Cody Bellinger in Yankee Stadium for a whole year, he puts up big numbers. Maybe they surprise me, but that's my concern going into the season is the lineup. So we're going to take our next break. When we come back, we will talk about Aaron Rodgers. More Aaron Rodgers talk. Was pleading for the Jets to keep him. And then we'll just kind of get into the conversation of which veteran quarterback would you rather have amongst the three main guys that I wanted to talk about. Rodgers, Russell Wilson, and Matthew Stafford, who possibly could be traded, but I still think he's going to stay with the Rams. So we'll get into all that when we come back. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. And for the fourth part of the show, we're going to talk more about Aaron Rodgers and the veteran quarterbacks that are available, could be available this offseason here. So Aaron Rodgers supposedly was really pleading for the Jets to keep him. Now, I don't think he was on like his hands and knees and, he was begging the Jets, please keep me. But, I think he was trying to, plead his case. That he wanted to give it another shot. Now, supposedly he said another year or two. I to be honest, I think he'd be lucky if he was able to get one more year. But if he did well, then they would, give him another chance, another year after that. But he really wanted this to work, and I know you could point to, well, look at what he's done. Look at what he did. Missing out on mandatory minicamp and. Going on the McAfee show and, some of the players and personnel that he brought in. Was he really all in? I think to an extent he was. I really do think he wanted it to work. And he has talked about it over and over again, how he really, has enjoyed his time in the New Jersey area. And he did want it to work. It's just... it went the complete opposite way. He tore his Achilles and comes back and, still trying to get, his footing back. And, then he got hurt during the year. And then he got healthier, played well, but it didn't really matter because the Jets were out of a playoff spot, way out of a playoff spot. They were pretty much out the whole year. I thought that things were going to go up for them after they beat the Patriots, even though the Patriots, of course, were not good. But, look at how the Jets have been. You thought that was something that was going to start anew for them, and it just didn't happen. It just did not happen. And now the Jets, supposedly they're interested in Justin Fields. I guess they could go that route. But the Jets, I think, wanted to go in a different direction. And bringing back a 41-year-old quarterback, they just didn't think was in the cards. Now, I've said it all along, I think Rodgers could still play. The problem is there's not a lot of situations you look at and you say, yeah, he is the missing piece. There's a lot of teams out there that need more than just Aaron Rodgers. Like when Tom Brady joined the Buccaneers, it was one of the perfect situations because you had the weapons there, you had a good coach, and you had pretty good defense. And look at what happened. Tom Brady was the missing piece for that team. But you look around at the landscape. I mean, teams that need quarterbacks. You got the Raiders, the Giants, well, the Jets, but they're out on Rodgers. Of course, we just talked about them. I guess the Browns. You know, there's, and the Browns might be trading Myles Garrett. Now you could say, well, what about the Vikings? Well, I don't know if the Vikings are going to bring in. I mean, they could bring back Sam Darnold. Actually, you could also throw Kirk Cousins in this conversation because it was mostly going to be about Stafford and Russell Wilson, but Kirk Cousins is going to be out on the open market, I would think, unless they want to keep him as a backup, which I know he talked about. But yeah, there's that scenario. There is that scenario where, which I don't think would happen, that the Rams trade Matthew Stafford and then they bring in Aaron Rodgers. Now, that Rams team is a team that could win right now. They came very close to knocking off the Eagles, but that was with Matthew Stafford as their quarterback. Now all of a sudden you're going to trade him, bring in Aaron Rodgers, who would be cheaper, but he's older. But that would be a good spot for him. It really wouldn't make sense to me for the Rams' perspective, but for Rodgers it would make sense because, hey, this is a team that can win right now. You got Puka Nacua, who's a stud. You know, Kyron Williams, a good running game, good defense. Defense played better down the stretch there, and you got Sean McVay, who's one of the best head coaches in the league. So yeah, that does make sense, but I don't think it's going to happen. I still think that Matthew Stafford is going to stay with the Rams. And then there's the Steelers. Steelers got a good defense. You know, you do have, George Pickens there. You got Pat Freiermuth. Decent running game. Offensive line does need a little bit of work, though, because Rodgers cannot take hits. We saw what happened. He was playing hurt, dealing with a few injuries throughout the year. So, yeah, there's not a lot of teams that I look at that have quarterback openings where I'm like, that's the place for him to go because he will make a difference. Because even with the Steelers, you go to the Steelers, right? Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson are in your division. So it's just, I don't know. And maybe he waits for an injury to happen or something. But it does seem like he wants to keep playing. Because there are reports that, obviously if you're trying to make your case with the Jets, you just don't want to play. So, he hasn't made an official announcement on that yet, but we're going to be getting that soon. But I wanted to get into him, Russell Wilson, and Matthew Stafford. So if you're a team that needs a quarterback, a veteran quarterback, who are you trying to get? I think right now the best option is Matthew Stafford of the three. Now the problem is Matthew Stafford you have to go out and trade for. And you'd have to give up assets for him. Now, there's those reports out there that the Giants, they'd have to give up their number 3 overall pick to get Matthew Stafford. That's not happening. Now, the Giants could be desperate enough to do that because Brian Daboll and Joe Shane, they need to win this year. Otherwise, they're out. So could they be desperate enough to go out and trade that number 3 overall pick and get Stafford? I don't know. I wouldn't put it past them, but they shouldn't do that. They should not do that. But I do think that Stafford, he still can give you a chance to go and win a Super Bowl if it's the right situation. I mean, again, they were very close to beating the Eagles and knocking them off. If it wasn't for Jalen Carter sacking Matthew Stafford on that 3rd and 2, I mean, who knows what happens? And I think that it didn't start snowing, I think the Rams win that game. But it's a hypothetical. I still think and look, Rodgers can still play, and I think Russell Wilson can still play too. But to be honest, I think if you get those guys, they're not leading you to a Super Bowl. Unless you really have a loaded roster. And we just talked about Rodgers. And if he were to go somewhere else, it's just, I think it might just be more of the same. I think he'll still put up good numbers, but I don't think you get to the playoffs. I don't think he's going to be, the Aaron Rodgers of old where he's, chucking Hail Marys up, on 4th and 20, throwing a 50, 60-yard pass down the sideline to Jeff Janis. It's not going to happen. And, even before all this, Rodgers only got to one Super Bowl. And it pains me to say that, but it's true. And all of it is not his fault. It's not all on him. But, even when Rodgers was in his prime, he wasn't going to Super Bowls. He was getting to championship games, but he was not getting to Super Bowls. But you could also look at how do teams view Aaron Rodgers if they were to bring him in. Do you want to bring him in just to be a bridge guy? Or are you bringing him in because you want to be competitive and try to go out and win a championship? Or just be competitive? And what does Rodgers think? Well, I think Rodgers wants to, if he's playing, he wants to win. And, if he has to mentor a young quarterback, he's open to doing that. I know he's open to doing that because he just did that with Jordan Love. Trying to do that with Zach Wilson, but, that really didn't work out. But I think he's open to doing that. But Rodgers wants to go and win. So, I don't know. We'll see how it all plays out. But, for Russell Wilson, too, like I said, Russell Wilson's coming in to just be a bridge guy. Could he get you to the playoffs? Hey, he just did it with the Steelers. But don't expect to go far with him because he's just not the same player. He's not. I think he could still play. But he's not the Russ that we saw in Seattle. And I've said that 100,000 times doing these shows. But I think Matthew Stafford, he's the best bet. It's just you'd have to give up assets to get him. Whereas Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson, you could probably sign them to relatively cheap deals. But you're not really, you can make the playoffs with them, but I don't think you're winning a championship. So, but that's really how I look at it. This quarterback carousel is going to be very interesting because you got these three, you got Kirk Cousins. We'll see what they end up doing with him if they, if they cut him, which I think they should. Or because I don't think he's going to want to be a backup to Michael Penix. You got Justin Fields out there. We'll see what the Vikings do with Sam Darnold. There's going to be options out there. And, we'll see what happens when the dust settles. Where a lot of these guys will end up. Aaron Rodgers, we got to see if he wants to keep playing. It seems like he really wants to play. Like if you are begging, not begging, but if you are trying to make your case to the Jets that you want to make this work, you want to play. And you want to go out on a better note than you did in 2024. Now, throwing 4 touchdown passes and getting your 500th touchdown pass in your last game, if he goes out like that, that's somewhat of a good way to go out. But then again, you could look at it and say, well, he went out on a 5-12 season. Like at least Tom Brady, he made the playoff. Like, yeah, they went 8-9, but he won the division and made the playoffs. They'd get embarrassed by Dallas, but Tampa wasn't good that year. They were not very good. But at least he did that. Aaron Rodgers, 5-12. We'll see. I want him to continue to play, but I'm not in love with the options. I'm really not. If he goes to the Steelers, yeah, I think the Steelers are going to get the best out of him, but it's not going to be enough. But that's my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think, though. about Rodgers and, the veteran quarterbacks that are available. Where do you think they could end up? Do you think Stafford's going to end up getting traded? I don't. I think he's going to stay with the Rams. I think they're going to figure it out. If they beat the Eagles, they're going to the Super Bowl, in my opinion. I think they beat the Commanders. And who knows? With the young guys they have on the defensive line, the way the Chiefs' offensive line was looking, they get after Mahomes, they could have won the Super Bowl. I mean, that might be too extreme to say, but still. They at least could have gotten past the Eagles. They were very close. But let me know what you guys' thoughts are about what we just discussed. So we're going to take our final break of the show now, and when we come back, we'll talk about Mike Trout. He's going to be changing positions. He'll be going from center field to right field, and we'll talk about that, just, his injury history, because it's been a tough stretch for Mike Trout, and also some other stuff I wanted to get into as well regarding position changes and players, agreeing or disagreeing to doing so. So, for one final time today, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. And we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we're going to talk about Mike Trout changing positions this upcoming season. So I said this before the break. He is going to be going from center field to right field. And this is what he was saying to reporters, kind of just do everything on the table as in what's best for my body-wise to keep me on the field. Came to the conclusion that I'm going to go to right field. I like it, try it out, see where it goes. I knew it was coming, just got to get used to it. I just want to be on the field. And yeah, it's been such a tough stretch for Mike Trout. During his prime years, I mean, he was the best player in baseball. He was the best player in baseball. And I was happy when he finally won an MVP, because it just seemed like he was always coming in second place to Miguel Cabrera, because Miguel Cabrera and his stretch during the early 2010s was unbelievable. But yeah, Mike Trout, it's been tough these last several years. 2024, he only played in 29 games. 2023, he played in 82 games. He played in 119 in 2022, 36 in 2021. Did play in most of the games during the COVID season. He played in 53 of the 60 games. And then, before COVID, he pretty much played every day. Missed a handful of games, some years, but, pretty much played the vast majority of games. But, yeah, from 2021 on, it's been really tough. It's been really tough. He's played in only 266 of 348 possible regular season games the last 4 years, to put it into perspective, or 41%. He's missed time, calf strain, back inflammation, broken bone in his hand, and then had a torn meniscus last year. Every year it's something new with Trout. And, it's sad. It's sad. You want to see Mike Trout on the field. And the other thing too is I just wish that he could have played somewhere else besides the Angels. I think he had the options to, but he chose to stay with the Angels, and could he be traded at some point? I guess, but the Angels have just been a disappointment. And they tried to bring in help, but there's been so many bad contracts. They brought in Pujols, that turned out to be a bad contract. Josh Hamilton was a bad contract. You went out and you got Anthony Rendon, and now he's going to be out again. That's been one of the worst contracts in all of sports, is Anthony Rendon. And this is a guy that won a World Series with the Nationals. Came over to the Angels, and it has not worked. And then, of course, they had Ohtani, and, he left too. And it's just Mike Trout, and the Angels, I don't really have any expectations for them going into the season, even with the healthy Mike Trout, because Mike Trout can't do it all by himself. But now he's at the point where he can't stay on the field. So, and if he can't stay on the field, then you really don't expect anything out of the Angels. But either way, like I said, if Trout's on the field, Angels are not doing anything this year. It's been a disappointing stretch for him. And also the other thing too is he's only been to the playoffs one time. That's the crazy part. One of the crazier parts. He's only been to the playoffs one time. That was back in 2014. That is going on 11 years ago. And on top of that, they didn't even win a playoff game in that series against the Royals. They didn't win. They had home field advantage in that series, and they did not win. And they haven't made it to the playoffs since. So, and that's not going to change this year. It's probably not going to change next year. Really, for me, I just want to see Mike Trout stay healthy. Because he's a great player, seems like a really good person. And, he got very emotional over it last year when he got hurt, when he tore his meniscus. Because it's like, it's another injury. And, I don't want him to retire prematurely. But it's getting to that point. He's only, I think he's 33 now. He's only 1 year older than Aaron Judge. And he's dealing with all these injury problems. You hate to see it. You really do. But this is good for him because now you're not covering all that ground out there in center field. And that's why, and speaking of Aaron Judge, that's an issue that some people had with him playing center field. Now, different body types, obviously, when you're comparing Mike Trout and Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge is a big dude. And obviously, when he's getting older, you want to get him off his feet. You don't want him to, you don't want that wear and tear to catch up to Judge, having to cover all that ground out in center field. Now, we're not going to have to worry about it because, he's going to be playing right field again this year with Soto leaving, of course. So you hope that, again, different body types, but different situations. Judge has dealt with injuries, but a lot of them were fluke injuries. He's diving for balls, he's banging into walls, getting hit by pitches. Different kind of injuries. But yeah, Mike Trout plays the game tough too. But yeah, we're hoping that, I think we're all hoping that Mike Trout can stay on the field this year and, play a decent amount of games, get back to the All-Star game, and, just put together a productive season. But I just, I don't think the Angels are going to do anything this year. So that's really my hopes is for Mike Trout to just stay healthy and have a good year. That's it. But the other thing too is players being approached with, hey, would you mind doing this? Would you mind doing that? Playing this position, or this position, whatever. There are some players that will agree to it. Yeah, I'll do whatever it takes to help the team win. But then you have other players that are just like, no, I won't do that. So, Aaron Judge would rather play right field, but Aaron Boone's like, hey, can you play center field? He's like, yeah. Mookie Betts, he's played all over the place. Outfield, second base, shortstop, whatever the team needs. Now you got Mike Trout. Well, Mike Trout's a little different, though, because they're just doing it to try to prevent injury. But, again, I'm sure, they asked him to play right field, even without the injuries, he would do it. But then you got guys like Marcus Stroman and even Rafael Devers, where the media's talking to Stroman, and obviously unique circumstances. Hopefully the Yankees are able to find someone to, trade him to, because he's not going to be a part of the starting rotation. But the media was asking Stroman, hey, would you pitch out of the bullpen? He's like, no, I'm a starter. He's a starter. He will not pitch out of the bullpen. And last year, the Yankees dealt with something similar with Gleyber Torres, where they asked him, hey, they approached him with the idea of going to third base, and he said, no, I'm a second baseman. Or I think it was, either way, he said he wants to play second. So that's why they moved Jazz Chisholm over to third. And then Rafael Devers, they were asking him, because they signed Alex Bregman, would you DH? Would you play first? And he's like, no, I'm a third baseman. Like, why do we have to be so difficult? First of all, first base is one thing, because that's, an actual position. But DH, I don't think it means every day. But, I'm not a Red Sox fan, so I'm not, close to the situation. But I don't think that means, like, all the time. I think it just means on certain days, hey, could you play first base? Could you DH? I don't see the problem with DHing. You're not playing a position. You're just going up there and hitting. And Devers is great at hitting. He's their best player. But it's just, why not do what the team asks of you? But, people have their own agendas. So, I get that, but it's just, I don't know. Many people appreciate the team players, that they'll do anything that the team wants them to do. And fans like that. But when you have guys that are like, nah, I'm not doing that. That kind of, that's kind of a bad reflection. I don't know. But back to Mike Trout. Like I said, hopefully you stay healthy with this position change, and I'm sure he's really worked his tail off to make sure that he stays healthy this year, and I think we're all rooting for that, and we'll see how it goes. Spring training is this week, so buckle up. Baseball season is around the corner, and actually, some news. So Joe Buck will actually be calling a baseball game on opening day. He'll be calling Yankees-Brewers. So for Yankee fans, I'm sure a lot of you are not thrilled by that because of his commentary. You know what? When it comes to Joe Buck, when I was younger, I fell into that category. But as I'm older now, I miss him doing baseball. I miss him doing the World Series. I miss him doing the Super Bowl. It's very odd. But that's kind of where I'm at. And I never thought I would feel this way, but I'm actually almost happy about this. But actually I'm not, but not because of Joe Buck, but I think it's because it's going to be, so the Yankees will be on ESPN. I think it's an ESPN exclusive game, so it won't be on the YES Network, which is their home network. That kind of takes me off a little bit, just because I'd rather watch, the Yankees on their network as opposed to, a national network, but especially on opening day. But that's just how it is. I would like to go to opening day, and we'll see if that happens. But just another thing to add. Some more baseball news there. But yeah, let me know what you guys think, though, about Mike Trout's position change. Do you think that's going to help? Let me know in the comments. And that is pretty much it for the show for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to check out all the other shows as well on the network. Make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the video. And until next time, I'm Kenneth Grunfelder signing off from the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great.